Welcome to Heart Space Podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Anna.
And I'm Candice. This is a podcast dedicated to all things heart-centered. In each episode, we will open our heart space to share embodied experiences, simple tips, and thoughtful prompts for you to live a heart-centered life.
If you are curious about the wisdom of our hearts, if you are ready to embrace deep transformation, this podcast is for you.
Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss any episodes.
From our hearts to yours, Anna and Candice.
Hi everyone, welcome back to a new episode of Heart Space Podcast. We are back together, sitting in Anna's study room and being served a very nice, freshly cut bowl of pineapples. Again, I missed that. In the last two episodes, we have been doing it virtually through Zoom, and it's nice to just connect physically. Well, we always open up with asking you, how is your heart today? So how is your heart today? Is it feeling good? Is it feeling nourished? Or do you feel like you need to just tend to your heart a little bit more today? And the topic that we are about to share, and you would have already guessed through the title, it's about playfulness. And it's something that is very, very organically thought about while we are discussing about the next topic. We feel like it's something that is relevant within our current season of life as we are building the brand together, while we already have created a structure with the kind of flow that we anticipate while creating episodes and moon circles, virtual gatherings. We think right now what we need in our life is the element of playfulness and allowing room for creativity to flow through, to make mistakes, to laugh about our mistakes, to just really have joy and humor into this entire mix of creation. So this episode is a form of play for us, to ingest lightness in our unfiltered thoughts. And we hope to just keep this momentum really light and casual with very minimal edits. So perhaps you would also hear a bit more pauses, stuttering, giggles in between, and it's all perfectly fine.
Yeah, and we started this episode with some technical problems. So this was like a question from the universe. Do you really care about being playful today? And we were, and it was fun.
Exactly.
And we went through it, and you can just flow now through this theme that it's very close to both of our hearts, I believe. So we want to dive a little bit more into like why why playfulness. And when we were doing our research before, and also when we were diving deeper into yogic philosophy in the context of play, we saw how important playfulness is in actually everything that we study, that we learn. There is always this invitation to be playful with life and not take life too seriously. So that's our take today. If you look at like the universe in a very wide perspective, it's also a play. It's also kind of a dance. Like quantum physics would describe the nature of universe as the dance of atoms. This is what I found. So you can see this unpredictability and this playful behavior of subatomic particles. And once you dive into that, even from this perspective of science, you can see that, yeah, exactly, it's all play, it's all movement, it's constant movement and it's constant dance. And the universe is not serious at all. There is no rigid structure to it. It's like, it's dynamic, it's ever-changing. It's an ever-changing flow of energy.
Yeah.
And I love to see it this way. It's just this very easygoing invitation to flow with life.
Yes, exactly. And when you speak about dynamic, I think about Shakti, because Shakti is also in Hindu philosophy. It represents this dynamic energy that is responsible for creation, maintenance and destruction of the universe. So it's just this ball of immense energy that wants to move things and do things and create life force.
Yeah. So yeah, we talk about science, but also when we exactly through Shakti, we look at Hindu philosophy, at yogic philosophy, there is this concept of divine play. It's called Lila. So through this perspective, we see the universe as a divine play of consciousness. It's basically it's the word itself means play. It means or pastime, and it refers to life as an ongoing play put on by the divine. So it's the Brahman and the creator. He's just manifesting creation through constant play. It's like play of the divine, repeating myself for the third time, but that's okay. You get the point. So whether you look at it from the perspective of science or through yogic philosophy, it's like very obvious that life is play. Life is constant dance. Life is creation through playfulness.
Yeah.
So playfulness is the nature of creation. And this whole existence, our bodies, the universe, the nature, is just a dance of energy.
And Shakespeare would say it very beautifully. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women are merely players. So we are, in a way, we are dancers in this universe, trying to work out life. And how can we be moving and dancing through if we are all so rigid and just standing still in one spot?
Yeah, exactly. So when we look at life through play and through this constant dance of energy of creation, we realize that there is no need for so much tightness, so much rigidity. We kind of allow, or it's an invitation to allow ourselves a little bit more softness and an invitation not to take life so seriously. Because I believe this is a very common challenge that we may be facing, thinking about life and ourselves and the jobs that we do as something very serious. I mean, some people do very serious jobs, some people save lives. But in the context of our existence of this earth, it's a very time-limited play that we have here. It's a very limited time that we have to play in this life.
Yeah.
So it's an invitation to just be playful.
Yeah, and in our jobs as well, because like you said, some jobs are more serious and there is a need to be serious. But apart from the job, what is it that you, in your life, that you could infuse this element of playfulness as well?
Yeah. And we will talk about that for sure. We will talk about like our take on playfulness. What does it really mean in our lives? And maybe even in our jobs or in our relationships. But also one thing that we wanted to address here is that playfulness, I feel, is sometimes wrongly equated with irresponsibility. I don't know if you had this feeling when we started talking about playfulness, maybe listening to the beginning of this podcast, maybe you got this vibe that play is for kids and it's irresponsible. I have so many responsibilities. I have to be serious in my life. But if again we tap into the beginning of what we talk about, life is a divine play. Life is constant dance of creation. So the irresponsible thing, from my perspective, an irresponsible thing would be to go against all of that when we tense ourselves and we become rigid in the way we do things, limiting our perception, closing ourselves to the immensity of what life has to offer, and taking things too seriously, that I feel would be the irresponsible choice, because that would be going against the nature of existence.
Yeah.
That's my thought for today. So being playful in life, and this we will explain a little bit more what do we mean exactly about that, but it can be a completely different thing for every single person. Being playful is actually the most responsible way to live.
Yeah.
Because it's embracing the nature of life.
Yeah, and that's what Ayurveda teaches us as well, to be in alignment with nature. So if we are not listening to the flow of life, then we are obviously against nature, and that is not how we should live.
Yeah. So playfulness is about cultivating a sense of presence. It's about spontaneity. It's about openness to the present moment, and just like approaching life with a sense of exploration and joy. Playfulness doesn't mean any particular thing or any particular activity. It's just the way we do things, the way we approach life through exploration and joy. And this way we just invite a sense of lightness, maybe some curiosity, allowing ourselves to go beyond our perceived limitations. So just like it's playing, they just explore, they just do it for the sake of experiencing joy. They just do it because they are curious of what will happen, and they allow themselves this openness, and they are fully present because it's within their nature. It's not something that they have to be taught to do. This is the most natural thing for them, and the most natural way for them to act. But what happens when we grow up, I guess, as we talked before, there are all these responsibilities, all these roles, all these expectations that society imposes on us, or we just impose on ourselves. And we are sometimes, I believe, forgetting about this innate capacity for joy and creativity. So all these roles, all these responsibilities, all these masks, all these identities, this is something that yoga invites us to peel away all these layers of conditioning, and just rediscover our true nature, which again lies in this flow and constant playing, constant dance. And that's something that we talked about in the last episode. We talked about stripping off the labels, the identifications of the self, in order to invite playfulness into our lives. So if you didn't listen to this episode yet, feel free to go and tune in after this one. And there is something very interesting here also in relation to stripping off the labels and all this self-identifications, our ego, that Sadhguru talked about. So I listened to Sadhguru's video on YouTube yesterday, and he talked about it from this exact perspective, that when we are too entangled in our own creation, and our own creation is our inner world of self-identifications, or who am I, and how important everything in my life is, and how much I have to, whatever it is that we created in our minds about the world. Every one of us live in our own imaginary world in a way. So as long as we are so entangled in our own creation, we may miss out on this larger creation, on this dance of universe. That's why we want to allow some of these identifications to just peel away and see this incredible world for what it really is. for this beautiful dance and play. We will probably add the link to this particular video that I'm talking about below in the description, so you can just go there and check it out and hear Sadhguru talking about it. It's pretty interesting. But let's go further. We wanted to talk about fear.
Yeah. I think fear is a lot about the false ego again. So going back to episode 2. So fear is when we think that we are in this own creation, the air quotes of creation, and identifying ourselves with this limited self. So we are fearful of making mistakes, and we stop ourselves from being creative. And we stop ourselves from experimenting and being open to anything that happens, anything that might, go wrong or go right for us. Normally, we always tend to think about what is the worst case scenario. And if it's so bad, I don't want to reach there, so I'm not going to do it at all. So how can we allow ourselves to know that we have this baseline safety to also explore play, while at the same time know that anything, if we fail, if anything, it wouldn't hurt us at all. And through any failures, actually, it would also give us even more realization about ourselves. So what is so bad about failing, right?
Yeah.
While we are being creative, there really is nothing to define what is right and wrong. So how can we allow ourselves to be really creative in this moment, to allow ourselves to express without putting again in boxes, in labels? And how can we also infuse some humor and joy in this moment? Because the moment we can laugh about it, we can laugh about ourselves, we can laugh about how this whole world is actually a joke. Yeah. And we can immediately be in this, from this closed mode to this open mode really, really fast and quickly, and just expand the possibility within our heart, and not just always be this this tight space that is formed in our mind.
Yeah, fear is a pretty important topic when we're thinking about like creative living or playful living or anything, any way that you want to define it. Because it's not really about like pushing the fear away or getting rid of all the fear. Fear is also pretty important and helpful, and it saves our lives, and it's something to embrace. So I really wanted to mention here how a writer, Elizabeth Gilbert, talks about fear in one of her books. The book is called Big Magic. It's a book that I read 2,000 times. Okay, just 3 times. And she talks about it as she's talking about fear like she would be talking about her dear friends. So let me tell you how she sees it. She says, the less we fight our fear, the less it fights back. And if we can relax, fear relaxes too. So it's not about being constantly in this fight with everything that we are afraid of and pushing our boundaries all the time, but about kind of embracing the life and this playfulness through just simple openness. Like, let's just try, let's just take a small step forward and see what happens. So doing things with fear and not allowing fear to stop us from whatever our heart desires. She, in the book, talks about a particular concept of her, about fear. And she called it the road trip. And she's saying how you can just welcome fear into your life and take it on board for whichever endeavor you are planning, but making sure that it doesn't make decisions for you, or it doesn't drive, this adventure for you. So she wrote like a letter to fear, and I will tell you a few sentences. She says, "Dearest fear, creativity and I are about to go on a road trip together. I understand you will be joining us because you always do. I acknowledge that you believe you have an important job to do in my life and that you take your job seriously. You are allowed to have a seat and you are allowed to have a voice, but you're not allowed to have a vote. You are not allowed to touch the roadmaps. You're not allowed to suggest detours. But above all else, my dear old familiar friend, you're absolutely forbidden to drive. So maybe think about fear from this perspective. Maybe it's fear of making mistakes that stops us from whatever, some creative adventures that we may have, or, going for this dance class or taking the art class, whatever it is that you may be interested in. And allow yourself to live a life that is driven more strongly by curiosity than by fear.
I love this. When you're reading it, I just can't help but smile.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is something that I would want to do for myself, just writing a letter to fear. Also, the beautiful act of this is that you are acknowledging fear and not just throwing it aside. So we're not saying that you should play recklessly, like maybe some moments when you're in your youth and you just, do things without much thinking of the consequences. But this knowing that you acknowledge your fear, but telling your fear you can be smaller, while creativity and me would, we are okay. We can be on the driver's seat and you just hang out with us.
Just chill in the back seat.
Yes,
and
yeah.
You can be here just looking around, making sure there's no danger.
Yeah, and fear is very relevant. It's a small dose of it. It sometimes can actually help us to stay on our toes and remind us again a sense of safety and questioning if this is the right decision. But if we allow fear to be so big that it just brings us along this wild right now, then it doesn't really mean the way that it should be. Yeah. So that's really beautiful. Yeah, and I think like this road trip that you mentioned, a lot of us, it's an experience from our growing up years. It's a time of discovery, and sometimes it also can be a time of frustration, pain, expectations that are unmet. Maybe we have some of us had our hearts being broken. And because of that, we stop chasing our dreams and we start doing or acting the way that people dictate how we should react or how should we partake in this world. But none of us are really born straight away to be adults or to do things the way that your mom did or a teacher did. We have to learn through the process of that. So it is only through learning that we grow, and children do it so incredibly. They experience and they play, and they just do it because they are so excited about life that they want to touch and feel every single thing that is within their reach. Whereas for us, because we have been through that and we maybe perhaps sometimes we touch and got our hands burned and we stop that way because we feel like that is not safe, and then I shall always be in this little box where I know that this is my safe zone and this shall be my life forever, in this rigid process of growing up based on what society asks us to do. So how can we try to reconnect with our inner child to allow play to happen? This is something that we really want to share today about inner child and how healing our inner child can develop more awareness as well as more connection to our dreams, our talents, and to feel empowered. So what does it mean to heal the inner child?
Yeah. I believe many of us never take the time to actually reconnect with this part of ourselves, but actually understanding our inner child and anything that this inner child is going through or went through can actually help us understand maybe why is it hard for us to connect with this playfulness, or maybe this inner child is just really, really, really craving to be, you know, passionate and creative and joyful and just dance and be ridiculous and just, you know, have fun. But for some reason, we are still stopping it from expressing itself. So what we want to invite, obviously this episode is not about like inner child work, but we want to invite is to develop a greater self-awareness. And this greater self-awareness can also help us tap into all of these passions. What is it that, you know, you are craving? Is there some passion from the time you were a child that you abandoned just because, I don't know, you thought that you're not good enough, but you really enjoyed it? Maybe there is some talent, maybe there are some dreams. So reconnecting with all of that, anything that actually resonates with you, can be a way to acknowledge this inner child, to be a little bit more self-aware, and just feel more empowered in a way. So through working with our child, our inner child, there is definitely an increased self-compassion, because we start to see ourselves as these beautiful creatures that went through so much in our lives, but are still this beautiful child at heart that just want to experience life, because that's what we are here to do, experience life. So yeah, it's an invitation for bigger self-compassion, and from there naturally we have more compassion for others. There's no other way.
Yeah, like how Anna shared that we are not here to talk too much about inner child work, but just as a reminder that the element of play or playfulness could be one of the way to tap into our inner child. You could also look at inner child as just being this pure soul within you that is just waiting for you to reconnect. And isn't it one of the saddest thing that when we grow up, we just stop playing because we feel like in order to be successful, we have to be serious, we have to be very firm, and the stakes are also higher because we don't want to look like a fool, and maybe perhaps it risks the chance of losing our jobs. So a lot of things that are built up in our minds and also being cultivated because of culture and conditioning, all this made us so fearful of making mistakes or being seen as a person that is not taking life seriously. But if we begin to let go of the fear of failure, we can just be ourselves, be who we are truly from this inner voice, this inner child. So perhaps what you might like to consider doing for today or maybe this entire week is to think about an activity that brings you pure joy and just make time for it. Preferably, once you start doing one thing, you could eventually add it on as your everyday routine, and being playful whenever you have a choice to do that. So for example, it could just be simply walking in the park and realizing how beautiful this nature is that is offering you, and how can you allow your imagination to also be part of this narrative, be part of this interaction with the world. What I really like to do is noticing how butterflies fly around. And I had this thought when I look at butterflies, is that their job in this world is for me to stop pinning my eyes on my phone while I walk and just be distracted for a moment, because they are so bright in color, right? Sometimes they are in yellow, or they're just different and they're flying around. So they distract me from this constant loop of being in my head too much, and just look up and see where are they going. And when I look up, I realize, whoa, there's a lot of beautiful trees around. Why am I missing out this beauty here? And I put down my phone and put it back into my bag and thank the butterfly and continue on this journey now with a little bit more connection with nature.
Yeah, And this is a very childlike way of living, because this is what the kids do. They are constantly getting distracted by the beauty of nature.
Yeah.
Like, you know, this butterfly or this leaf, or here the grass is touching me and this ant is going up my foot. And it's just like constant play and dance with everything that comes in, which is a beautiful thing to invite into our lives. Yeah,
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to share here a quote. We don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing.
So true.
And just reframe that in your mind. Like, if you want to feel a bit lighter in your life, maybe, you know, a little bit younger, just play. Just play.
Yeah. And it creates this inner radiance, right? So looking younger, because you smile more, you are really activating all of your senses, and you don't need to feel like you need to conceal it with more cosmetics, makeup and those things, because innately you are glowing and people are asking you like, what's your secret? My secret is that I don't take life too seriously and I just play.
Yeah. This inner glow, that's in Ayurveda, your ojas.
Exactly.
When you are deeply nourished through your life and your thoughts, and this positivity just sparks to your eyes, and you can see it for sure in your family, in your friends. There are moments where it's just so obvious.
So personally, like I mentioned about the butterfly, that was one way that I think that is really simple in activating our senses and using it as a physical activity to remind ourselves in a day-to-day life of how we can infuse play into our lives. It could also be as simple as, you know, blowing bubbles, or it could be a more elaborate thought of dancing, going for yoga, drawing, singing, really anything that really floats your boat, right?
Yeah. So those are very small activities, and I feel that we don't have to be like turning around our lives and now trying to include the idea of play into every. So it's not a task on our to-do list. Playfulness is not something we have to actively do. It's just something that we invite into our lives to experience this particular present moment. And it can be as tiny as, I don't know, you're walking in a supermarket and you're just dancing in the alley and you feel this rush of excitement. And you know that you are just being ridiculous right now. And that's exactly the essence of play. So you don't have to be good in all of these things that you're doing. You don't have to be good in singing in order to enjoy singing. As long as you enjoy singing, you're doing an amazing job. So just through inviting this flow, this joy, and this ease, we are already living a playful life. So that's an invitation. It's really not a complicated concept. Is the purest, the most basic, the essence of it all, I would say. Just the first step to allow ourselves to actually be a little bit more playful is going to, like a snowball effect. Is it an expression? Like a snowball effect, invite more of that ease into other areas of our lives. We don't have to stress about it.
Yeah. And it also reminds us to be really present here and now, and not just, you know, be somewhere else. So playfulness, you have to commit fully to playfulness. You can't just be half-assed with your playful attempt to you know, just test the waters that way. Yeah, you have to open up your hearts, and that is all we are talking about throughout the episodes that we have shared so far. It's all about this heart-centered living, and how can you tap a little bit more into your heart space to find that present moment, to allow yourself to have ease and joy and playfulness by removing all your fear and your doubts, and just allow life to flow and see through what is this that you are doing and how can, teach you a bit more about yourself.
Yeah, Alan Watts said, you can't be spontaneous within reason.
Yeah.
So there is no way to think ourselves into playfulness, or spontaneity. It's just about doing it.
Yeah.
And we know obviously that for some of us it may be easier said than done, and life is tough and life is serious and there are all these things. But just by inviting the small moments of joy and being a little bit softer around the edges and allowing for this ease to flow, and not having this pressure to be good at everything that we do, and just doing things for the sake of doing things, and just playing for the sake of playing, or this is all that it takes.
Yeah, exactly. We have 2 prompts here for you if you are feeling like, okay, let me get this started and I am open to playing now. This is for you to potentially think about and allow yourself to see whatever that might unfold through this contemplation. So the first prompt is, what did you do for fun as a child? What did you do for fun as a child? As simple as that. And the second one is, what did you daydream about when you were a kid? What did you daydream about when you were a kid?
Yeah. I was thinking about this question. We just talked about it before we started recording, that I don't think I was daydreaming when I was a kid. I had a lot of very vivid dreams at night, and I kind of had these 2 lives, the one when I was awake and the one when I was dreaming, and I loved going to sleep, and there was just so much life and amazing adventures when I was asleep, and I could take full control over my dreams, and I could fly, I could breathe under the water. And whenever, the dream was not going my way or something scary was starting to happen, then I could, with full control, just open my eyes and finish the dream. That's it. Or then jump back into the moment when I enjoyed it. So this was my form of daydreaming, I believe, just dreaming. It was just dreaming. And this was so incredibly beautiful. I lost this ability, unfortunately, although I'm working on tapping into it.
Yes.
But this is it. This is this playfulness that the children possess.
Yeah. I think Anna lived a very, very fulfilling childhood. And 24/7, she's just, immersed fully in play and fun and joy. And that's so beautiful.
Yeah, I really enjoyed my childhood.
Yeah. For me, I think I daydream most when I am alone, and I tend to dream about myself being a princess, and there are a lot of people in my court, and for me to instruct them to do things, for me this and that. So it was a lot of characters that were built up in my mind, and sometimes playing, like building up castles on my parents' bed and with the bolsters and pillows and all of that. So it was a lot of fun with myself. And again, like if I were to tap into my inner child right now, I would wish to have that same kind of feeling. Obviously not in the same way of me reenacting the whole scene again, but the feeling that I had, that freedom of creativity, and just, having no one to say, hey, no, stop doing that. That's the wrong way to think in your life. How can I invite more of that into this present moment right now?
Yeah. And absolutely, it's also important to mention here that not everyone had a happy childhood or childhood when they could daydream or have fun. So there is no, no right or wrong if you just cannot connect with that because simply there was no playfulness, or there was not enough of this playfulness for you in your childhood. Just invite it to your here and now through this very small, simple acts.
Or maybe looking at a child instead, and observing and how
they play.
Yeah, how they play, and see how that can inspire you to also play.
Yeah, if someone didn't had the opportunity to experience this when they were kids, maybe they will be able to experience it through their own children, with their own children, or with the kids of their friends, and just seeing this playfulness in action.
Yes, exactly. So playfulness is a lot about going with the flow. It's a lot about not putting your life into a box, into the way people tell you to do and act, and you just follow the rules, which in a culture in Singapore, you see a lot of that happening, and it has become a norm, but it's a common theme, but it's not normal, right? So we just want to also share how we have our personal journey through Ayurveda, and how we can infuse a little bit of playfulness into this thing about Ayurveda that encourages us to look life in a more holistic manner. So many of us here are very devoted in our healing journey, or rather, people are starting to come to realize that they need this, or they crave this sense of inner peace. And they want to feel good, they want to be good, they want their health to be in balance, and it's a great thing. So perhaps you are on this journey right now, and Ayurveda spoke to you, and you just want to learn everything about Ayurveda because people are telling you like, oh, the benefits that it has given them, good health, and they feel good, their mind's clear, all of that, blah, blah, blah. And we have witnessed a lot of people who are very sincere on this journey through the workshops that we have hosted, through the circles that we have hosted and held space for. And people are adopting this Ayurvedic lifestyle. So when we first learn about Ayurveda, probably for 90% of us, I could say that the first thing that got us interested, or we are introduced to, would be the dosha system. Not even before Sankhya philosophy, because who wants to think about and talk about philosophy? Just give me the techniques, right? So we learn about the dosha, and doshas is a great way to understand our imbalances, a great way to understand how does the 5 elements work for us and how they play out in our mind and our body. But sometimes I feel like the dosha system, or rather not the dosha system's fault, it's just that the way we approach it, it kind of makes it like an identity again, that we try to hold on to. If I am an X dosha, if I'm a Pitta dosha, I am this. So we start holding on to the truth, and we, do a lot of things that are good for Pitta, and that's it. So here's an example that before Ayurveda, in a timeline before Ayurveda, maybe this person is working out 7 days a week and just doing a lot of high intensity sports and having a very simple intention of wanting to look good, to look really lean and ripped and aesthetically pleasing. And that's nothing wrong about it. But then started to learn more about Ayurveda and realized that, the way that I work out is actually not too good for my body type. And then it starts to, and the person starts to do things or take on techniques and routines that are more suited for their body type to balance it back. So it's a great journey because it's having more awareness of your body and then slowly changing the ways that you can in your daily life to bring it back into balance. But at this moment, you start to be too attached to your dosha, and hence like all the imbalances and the food that you are not supposed to eat, you get very critical about that, and you stop eating your favorite food because it is not Ayurvedically approved, and everything you do is by the books. So with this example, what we're trying to also share is that this rigidity can actually create a prison that was previously done very differently, where you are intensely working out, and then now you just switch over to another prison where you are, trying to do everything by the books that Ayurveda says, but not finding the joy and playfulness within it to explore it for your own. And a lot of times we tell the people who come in for the circles and such workshops, as well as our teachers, they would always say that whatever that we are sharing with you, you don't have to take it for the truth or for the fact, because you have to experiment it for yourself and embody it for yourself. And if you don't, everything else that you have learned is just going to be textbook knowledge, right? And this textbook knowledge is evidently important, but it can only bring you this far. If you don't create a kind of a rhythm with nature, with joyfulness and playfulness, you'll never really understand the full essence of Ayurveda and what she's trying to introduce to us in our life.
Yeah. Yeah, in Ayurveda, it's a lot of things that we may, look at it from the perspective of the dosha, that in theory are not going to be good for us. But as long as this is something that gives us joy and makes us happy, and we just do it or drink this coffee with a smile on our faces, this is going to be good for us.
Yeah.
Even if from Ayurvedic perspective, it's not. So there's always place for this kind of playfulness and just embracing the flow of life with whatever we are talking about. Is it be it Ayurveda or anything else?
Yeah. And it's all about a balance, right? And how can we find the sweet spot between doing things that we love and doing things that create some kind of anchor and safety within our life.
Yeah.
So when I think about playfulness and how can I balance it in my life, I think there are a few ways that I have already been experimenting, and I find that it brings me lots of joy. One of it is, because I'm still doing it, I'm teaching kids yoga, and I find that this is the ultimate way of tapping into my inner child again and playing and just going with the flow, because kids are really my guru when it seems like I'm teaching them a class, but all of them together, they are teaching me so much more about what have I disconnected with for a long time. The joy of just running around in the room. I mean, it wasn't even just a very rewarding action that is required. Like I wouldn't say like, oh, run 10 times and you will get a chocolate from me. It's not that. It wasn't about earning a prize. It's the joy of running that they really are invested in, just running and screaming at the top of their lungs and just having the best time. And I feel that really is the true joy of being connected with your body, being connected with yourself. And the way that they speak in these days, they are just so talented, so smart. And yet I know that when they speak from their heart. They know what is right. Kids are so smart that they know what is right. But being right doesn't mean it's fun. So they would say other things that are not right, because that is how their character is being formed as they are growing up and trying to find their identity right now in this new phase of life of going to school and meeting people. So all in all, I just want to say that when I get to be immersed in a space filled with kids, I truly could allow myself to safely tap into my inner child and play with them and still try to teach a class, but more of facilitating and holding a space for them and for myself. And the second way of adding play into my life is through my daily practice, my sadhana. So I used to not have a consistent yoga practice. Yoga meaning like a yoga asana practice, because I find so much, maybe it's just in my head that I think that, to do a practice, I need to lay out my mats, I need to be there for an hour. So in the end, I'm just so tired about thinking about all these things, I stopped doing it. So for a long while after I graduated from my teacher training, my practice is very irregular, it's on and off. But in the last half a year or so, I realized that removing this burden about practicing yoga, I just came onto the mat, and on no mat at all. Sometimes I just, do it on the floor, and it doesn't matter if it's a 10 minutes practice or 20 minutes practice. It never ever went more than 60 minutes. So it's just a moment that I feel it's just enough for me in that very day. And I did my practice. And after doing my practice, I tend to usually just play some music on the background, and I'll flow with the music. Whatever music that comes out, and I'll just let Spotify choose the genre for today. And I'll just dance. Or it's just a very fluid and free movement of listening to the rhythm, to the tunes, and allowing it to connect with my body and to move seamlessly, or maybe also very awkwardly, but who cares, because no one's looking at me. And I just truly enjoy the moment of playfulness with myself. And I think that allowed me to also build a very intimate relationship with my body and self, and building up this confidence again that I can and I know how to move my body through different planes. And it's so joyful. So that truly allowed me to find more creativity and spontaneous reaction.
So my personal practice is very similar. So I just wanted to tap into that.
Yeah.
There was a time when it was more like rigid, and it was like yoga. It's yoga practice, like Sadhguru yoga. But in reality, what was bringing me joy was flowing from my practice from breath work to movement to dancing to free form of dancing, and just being playful and just walking around. And sometimes my husband is joining me into the dance, and it's just so much more joyful when there are no restrictions in terms of what your sadhana is and what it is not. Because I believe that everything that we do in life is, in a way, our personal practice. Whatever we repeat, whatever we do on a daily basis, it's kind of our practice. Whatever we do, we make it stronger. So my personal practice is very much this. It's very much a combination of yoga, of movement, of dance, of play. And dance itself was always present in my life since I was very young. But with age, the older that I was becoming, the more I was attracted to intuitive movement and free form of movement. And then here in Singapore, I came across a beautiful initiative of Secret Sunrise that we are familiar with. And I met through that a lot of amazing people, a lot of really fun people. And what we do, we just go to a local park, to the beach or wherever, or to a rooftop in one of the skyscrapers, and we just go there. We put on prepared by us playlist, and we just dance. We dance barefoot, and we just do whatever we feel like. It's a guided form of dance, but in reality, it's such a beautiful transformation from all this rigidity into just being our full authentic selves, just dancing like it's like no one's watching. And maybe at the end we jump into the water, into the sea, or anything, and it's just the most playful, the most fun thing that I'm doing recently in terms of like playfulness in life. So this bunch of people is very much a very playful group. But apart of that, it can be invited, this playfulness can be invited through daily activities. Like you talked about the butterfly. For me, very often it's like, for example, during a bike ride, I just get immersed into looking at the shades of green as I drive through a park connector, and it just astounds me. Is that a word?
Yes.
It is. Yeah. It just astounds me how beautiful it is and how many shades of green exist. And then all this, the sun going between the trees and between the leaves and all the shades of yellow and getting involved. And it's just so beautiful. So though it can be as simple as that, just enjoying the views, being amazed with nature. So this is also my other ways of inviting playfulness, but it's more spontaneous. It's nothing planned. It's not a personal morning sadhana. But also what we can do is basically doing nothing. And this might be something challenging for some of us.
Yeah.
But doing nothing is such a beautiful tool to access our inner child, or just allow ourselves to slow down, or just taking breaks while we work. I do that when I, for example, work on a project or whatever, and I feel that I'm missing something. I'm not seeing a full picture. I'm getting too involved in it. I just stand up and I just go to dance for a moment to the living room, or I just go for a walk around, or just lay down on the sofa, gaze at the ceiling and do nothing. And then suddenly all of this tension just melts away.
Yeah. Same for me.
Yeah. And for me, a big example of a very playful person is my husband. He is very much an embodiment of playfulness, and I'm so grateful for that, because for him it comes so naturally. And he's making art and doing music and doing all of that for the sheer joy of doing it, and just enjoying it and being fully present in here and now. So our flat is full of his artwork, and it's just something that connects him to this childlike himself. So he's a wonderful example for me what it really means to be playful.
And playfulness can be infectious, right?
It really is.
When one person comes in with so much playfulness, it helps another person to soften up. And then we continue with that energy and just spreading to more and more people. So it's such a beautiful way of spreading love in a different way to other people.
Absolutely. So I guess we are slowly closing our discussion. I wanted to share with you maybe some tips, some ideas, how else can you invite this playfulness, but also what you may want to take into consideration. And for me, number one that I wanted to share, that I heard in the same video by Sadhguru, is be ridiculous. What is a ridiculous thing that you think that you could do? Like,
of course, not something illegal.
Yes, as long as it's something not dangerous and not illegal, but just ridiculous. Like you mentioned before, dancing in the supermarket.
Yes,
it's kind of I mean, there's
or just laughing out
possibilities, laughing out loud in a public place. Whoa. Anything that you consider that is ridiculous at this very moment. Just invite it from time to time and just be a little bit really ridiculous. Just soften the armor and get a little bit more playful through simple things as that. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate.
And it could be just like dipping your toes in the seawater. You might think like, oh, I'm dressed up so nicely, and don't be ridiculous. I don't want it to be dirty under the sand and all that. Just do it. Do it, and what will happen if you have done it and you get your clothes dirty, or rather wet and soaked? What is worse? What is the worst case scenario here, right? Because oftentimes we just put this ridiculous labels so vividly and permanently in our head that we can't just get out of the thought and experiment it with our body. But if we try it and then we realize that, oh, actually it's a very simple and very normal thought, what is it that we initially thought is ridiculous? It's not at all.
Exactly.
And then the second one is to just enjoy things even if we are not good in them. So like how Anna shared, that we don't need to have a beautiful voice to have people praising us that, oh, you're so good in singing, to even start singing. You have to do it because you love it, not because you're waiting for external validation. So do things even if you suck at it. There's a lot of things that we suck at it, but we just do it anyway.
And it might be really, really fun. It's just about going, hand in hand with your fear and doing it anyway, instead of letting fear stop you from experiencing it. Then another one we have that we really wanted to share with you is don't take life too seriously. It's all a play. It's all a dance of elements. And our time here is very limited. And cultivating seriousness in everything we do tends to disconnect us from the essence of life. So, as Elizabeth Gilbert would say, be the weirdo who dares to enjoy.
Yeah.
Just don't take it too serious.
Beautiful. We would also want you to try to speak to your inner child more often. So remembering the prompt that we shared earlier, what did you do for fun? What did you used to daydream about? Or maybe just even noticing another child within your life. What is it that brings them so much joy? And can you also mirror that? Can you also find a similar act of loving yourself more and tapping into this form of play and joyfulness within you?
Yeah, and last but not least, do this stuff with devotion and with faith. It's, when we are trusting that the universe is good, that it's supporting us, when we are devoting to what we are doing instead of being in a million places at the same time, this is a very special kind of joy. This is a lot of presence, a lot of joy can sprout from doing things from this a very present place. I went in circles,
Yes.
I think.
Yes.
But I guess you get my point.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess that's all from us for today.
It is. All we want to tell you today is to relax and enjoy life as it is.
Yeah. And we know that it's, again, sometimes easier said than done.
Yeah.
And it can be challenging. And there are a lot of things that we are struggling with in life. So we are not undermining all these challenges and all of this sadness that we may be experiencing. But in other areas of our life, or whenever we are ready for that, the invitation is just to remember that life is this play of elements and allow yourself to be a little bit more soft and playful whenever the time comes.
Yeah. We would love to hear how do you invite play into your life. So be in touch with us on Instagram, on Facebook. There are multiple ways that you can reach out to us, and we will be sure to also reach out to you. The next full moon gathering will be happening in July, and if you are interested to join us, you can also be on our newsletter so that you'll be the first to know once registration opens. And last but not least, if you enjoy our podcast, please make sure to share it with your friends and drop us a review.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye. From our hearts to yours.
Thank you for listening.